All right. So we are live here with Gayle Fisher. We're so excited, starting off 2020 with the ARC of Fort Bend County Parent Education and Support Group, and we have Gayle Fisher today here with us. Gayle is an activist mom, fierce mother of a child with learning differences, her son John, educator, advocate, author, ally. Gayle, you do so much. And then a former corporate warrior, I love that. And she's going to help us understand what to do to help children with learning differences prepare for today so that they can be ready for life. Gayle's going to share with us all that she has learned over time. We always use a team, our village, and have fun together and learn together is what Gayle says. So a little background about Gayle. She grew up on and worked on a farm in Illinois. She is the oldest of 5. She then moved to Houston and worked 17 years in corporate America. She was seeking greater purpose, so Gayle moved into education. She's earned her Master's of Education, Master's in Teaching, or Master's in...
Yes, Master's in Ed, and then the section is Education Technology.
Education Technology. And that was from Texas A&M. And BBA in Finance from University of Houston, and an AA in Pre-Engineering from Houston Community College. So she serves on the Advisory Council of the MHAHouston.org's Center for School Behavioral Health, and on the Prater-Willie Association, and empowered the Change.org's Board of Directors. And she presents at many workshops for people with learning differences in the community, and she is also an adjunct instructor at Lone Star College's Academy of Lifelong Learning. And Gayle is also the founding co-facilitator for both our trainingcenter.org and specialneedssibs.org. So an extraordinarily busy lady, and we're so glad to have you here, Gayle, to share some knowledge and this particular topic about reading and neural pathways. So I'm going to hand it over to you.
Awesome. Very glad to be here with you all. Thank you. There's no trick to this, right?
No trick.
No heavy coffee?
No.
Awesome. So glad you all are here today. Thank you for taking me a little bit of time to debrief on the front end. So with what you can see on the screen, I'm glad to share it with anyone. So whoever's watching, you can put that URL address in, and I will send the notes into you entirely. Also, we'll talk a little bit about the ARD relationship because it factors in, and the parent presentation that I've developed over the years for my kiddo. Started in 3rd grade, and now we're in 7th grade. And so it's grown to a pretty hefty pile of pages in PowerPoint, but I will be delighted to share it with anybody. You just email me, it's fine. In building a positive art experience with your school, right? Because this is, you have your home version of the game show, and then we have our school version of this too. Because the kid does need that consistency. At least my kid needs the consistency. Okay, awesome. So when we talk to the educators, we could say phonetic awareness, but you guys understand what that is too. Is that something happened and we blinked, and our kids all of a sudden don't have what some of the peers have. So how can we remedy that, right? And we wish it were really, it's a simple idea, but it's not simple because of the brain and everybody's so different. But we're going to try to work on a little bit more understanding. There's a lot of words here. The main thing are the ones in the yellow that we're going to touch on, the whole problem with the flashcards, retelling the story, graphemes and phonemes, working memory, executive functioning, sensory integration, the vocabulary, right? Because our kids get pulled out and they miss the words. My kid did not like me reading to him in those early years, so there wasn't all those warm, fuzzy, reading books together for hours kind of stuff. And so our kiddos can miss out on vocabulary, and then all of a sudden, not only can they not retell the story, but they don't understand the words they're looking at in the first place, right? It's not necessarily through no fault of their own, it's just the way time rolls. Right. We're talking about motivation, joint attention, behavior choices, expressive language, receptive language, auditory processing. And then we have the dirty words that all of a sudden come up later on, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, dyslexia. You get into the education speak of words. It just means you have a difficulty writing, you have a difficulty with math, and you have a difficulty retelling the story. Well, that makes school really easy, right? Nothing to negotiate with the RELEA there. So we'll talk about word building, word decoding. I've got props here to pass around and share with you guys. One of our parents, Dad, you've already been through a lot of these interventions on the outside, so feel free, and Anne, you've got experience. Your child is in the adult transition in the public school system. So 2 public school parents. Carrie, do you have kiddos?
I do.
Yeah.
So I have a daughter in middle school, and reading comprehension and getting it and how to retell stories is definitely a difficulty for her.
Yeah.
Right.
Is she a neurotypical learner?
She has a IEP and,
Okay.
and classified with a specific learning disability in reading comprehension.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. So we got middle school,
Middle school as
middle
well,
school, and then adult transition. Awesome. Okay. So how does this problem happen? Well, I was sharing with Carrie earlier that my kid, I got sucker punched thinking that he could read because he was doing okay in kindergarten with the flashcards. But that's memorization of some easy key words, right? And then as time goes by, he's faking it. So he'll say something, he'll jibber jabber with the sentences, but it's all nonsense because all that stuff passed him by. So flashcards can distract from the teaching of phonics. It's an easy fix. Let's just get these kids these flashcards, and for the most part, the neurotypical learners catch on, maybe, right? But the kids that don't, then and the pullouts are going to slow the learning down. Their peers move on, causes them to miss vocabulary, right? And then PDD, in the old times we called it pervasive developmental delay, not otherwise specified. It just meant that if your kid was way behind, very, very developmentally delayed, they might put autism on it or something like that, maybe multiple diagnoses depending on your own particular situation. But that doesn't tell you what to do. That's just a label, thank you very much, see you later. So anyway, these are some of the issues that lead to the fact that our kids have such holes in their learning. It's my little picture there, holes in their learning. And they need some help in filling those holes. Right. And each of our 4 kids are going to be very different. But they still need supports, right, in the public school system. Okay. So a little bit about phonemes and graphemes, because as you're talking with anybody, a little bit of technical vocabulary is a help. So down there in the first rectangle on the bottom, phone is sound. So that is the smallest piece of vocabulary that's a sound. Grapheme is write. So the very smallest piece of a word that is written. An example would be the letter M. So M is a grapheme because it's the smallest chunk of a written thing. And phoneme has 2 sounds. And those of us who've been through Texas Reading Institution, they break it down and they actually draw it. So you would draw S, and you're building the neural pathways of reliability for our kids when they've missed out really strong fundamental pieces. So I'll show you pictures of all this, but first, to help our kids with the language, they have to know what it sounds like and what it looks like, and then how we put these Legos together to make words. So we have to build the words first. And then, oh, great, you want me to remember what you said. So you want me to retain that as our children are wrestling through this. You want me to retain that in my working memory in my brain. And then, oh great, now the third one, you want me to even now retell the story back and interpret it and tell you what it means to me. So these are steps of the actual language processing skills. And for my kid, we needed help with that, much to my chagrin. We had to meet him where he was. But now, definitely retaining and interpreting, those are still challenges for us that we're working on. And you probably recognize something like that with your kid. As a progression, that's great, we're making progress, right? That's those are some of the pieces of the goals. Executive functioning, the dictionary says that is a set of processes that we all have to manage ourselves and our resources. So we each, all 4 of us, we're here, we're dressed, we look good, we're drinking our beverages, we got our stuff on the table, we get an A for our executive functioning for this morning to get where we gotta go, right? You have a project in your life, income taxes or whatever, some large thing, you have to have a beginning and an end, and you have the steps in between. In business, they call it critical path analysis, project management, and for our kids, they have to have the same kind of thing in executive functioning. So the dictionary then says that it's a brain-based, neurologically based set of skills with mental control, self-control, self-regulation. So that's, when we say executive functioning, it's kind of like this umbrella of that arches over all the other pieces of education that they have in their mind, in their brain. So anyway, putting them together, this is what the kids are working with, that you have to be able to understand how these pieces fit together, keep it in their working memory, retell the story, retain it, interpret it. So vocabulary there for us. To manage oneself, so for our kids, and to manage their self-control, their self-regulation, not to be frustrated, to read it again, to read it slowly enough. So all the things that we work on for John is that he's just in a big hurry to get it done. So he's just going to go through it real fast, pick the first one, and he's going to, eeny, meeny, miny kind of thing, and he's going to get it wrong because he's got a 25% chance of getting it right and a 75% chance of failing. So it's the attending, slowing down enough to feel good about yourself that you want to get it right. So just a little bit about how a child develops. There's a lot of theory here, but I don't want to stay on it too long. I just wanted to give you some quick pictures. You start off with motor function, the big muscles, your arms and your legs, and then the child will integrate in the visual system, and then pretty soon the visual system becomes the dominant one, and then pretty soon when they get to school, they're ready to attend, sit nicely, see what's on the board. Their eyes have to saccadic jump. So you're on your paper, then you have to jump up to the blackboard or the whiteboard and jump back down, or look out at the hallway and come back down here. So the kids' eyes are busy. There's a lot of the eye integration and eye age. You work with the right kind of a vision therapist, and they can actually clock out what is the visual age of your child's processing system. They have an educational background, and they have the eye doctor background. So it's like a dual degree thing, or 2 degrees. Really good ones too. So before we started, Carrie and I were kicking around the idea of the neural pathways, and this is why we have hope, and this is what we're doing with our kids in practicing. So I just want y'all, no matter what happens, I want you to know that as long as your kid's not dead, there's lots of hope, because we can take their brain will. So the bottom piece here would be for a neurotypical child, but let's also interpret it for our kids that have learning differences. So throughout, just in their starting of the education, and the sensory integration coming in with different portals of data, and it's not all synchronizing. So John, my kid, might have like 40 different ways to do something, all slightly different, all equally wrong, or almost all wrong, or maybe a way to go to the grocery store, or just variations in their mind. So if for one day they choose, or one opportunity they choose that path, and then the next time they choose that path, and then the next time they choose that path, you have a variety of behaviors, sensory seeking, sensory averse, that may not be consistent. That's not what society expects. That's not what the teacher in the classroom expects, or the peers expect. So what we want to do is eventually prune that down, and it's going to take intervention. Kids will naturally prune at preschool and at teenage years, but our kiddos usually need help in changing the variation of how their brain's coming up with answers. So we have a nice, good, strong neural pathway for the rest of their life that's reliable, and they can use it, and it will fit into society well and live independently. So the brain's an amazing thing, and the more we learn about brain pathways, neural pathways, how the brain works, it's a great time in history to have these problems, because before they just thought kids were stupid and didn't try and didn't care. But we know now this is some of the stuff that's going on, so we can understand better what our kids' brains are going through. Okay. So sensory integration, you probably have heard this. Sensory integration, it usually sounds mystical, but it's really not. We have 9 doorways, 9 pipes that bring data into our brain. So you have the first 5 that everybody knows about. You taste it, you see it, you smell it, you touch it, you hear it. Then there's 3 more, the tactile, the proprioceptive, and the vestibular, which are other ways. So tactile is, I got a tag, it's itching me. Proprioceptive is, I don't know where my body is in space, so I'm going to be touching a lot of things so I can feel grounded. It's why a lot of our kids don't do a 2-footed launch. We had to practice to be able to do something like this. You can't see my feet, but to be able to jump up like that and come back down instead of kind of 1 foot up or off balance. It's like they don't have enough faith in where their body is in space. If they lift both feet up at the same time, they're not exactly sure where the ground's going to go. So that's all based into their insecurity of where their body is in space. So that's proprioceptive. That's the purple one, the body position. Then the vestibular fits into the ears. So for our kids that might have had ear infections or tubes, also the ears affect balance, and they're so close to the brain. It's just right here. So the data is coming through that, and then the final one, the green one, is the most recent, and that's interoception, which means kind of like self-control, with the brain and the body, and it can read the emotions and they know what's going on, so that self-regulation piece. I need to be calm. Everybody, all the other kids in the classroom are sitting in their chairs. Nobody's up on their table. Maybe I should be sitting in my chair and calm. So that's interoception. Sensory seeking, sensory averse. Some kids can be the ones that are fading away, scared in the corner. Others can be in your face all the time. You also can have the kiddo that's in your face and back and forth, but both yin yang back and forth, which is my son there. So, and that factors into the teaching too, and their ability to sit still and to attend and be calm. Right. So some information about neural pathways for your homework. The vagus nerve system. So that's your brain and all of the little wires that go out just in the vagus nerve system. If this is not calm, then the child's not going to be able to learn. They're going to be just stemming or all riled up. Our vagus nervous system needs to have moments of calm and safety. You can click on that, and there's a lot more information to tell you about this. So there's a lot of physiology in learning, physiology in the brain and how this stuff all fits together for our kids. There's some more information, how ears are supposed to work, great video, and then why kids often have problems here with oral motor and how they speak because of all the concentration of neural pathways in the shoulders, the trigeminal nerve system. Tri, 1, 2, 3, Gemini, left and right. So there's a lot of wires that's in this part of the kid. And if this stuff's all revved up, then we're not going to be calm and is able to concentrate. So here's some of the interventions that we've been using with our non-clinical OT. So again, some vocabulary. And not all of these, some of them might be covered by insurance. There might be some home-based versions of it. I'm always trying to give links to people so that they can let their money go the farthest, right? Because money and time and distance is a thing, and transportation is a thing in our world. So anyway, issues with balance, and then bilateral, which means bilateral, I'm doing something with my arms different than what I'm doing with my legs. So this is what interactive metronome looks like. Fast forward, astronaut training, that's spinning. And so they'll lay them on this side, spin, lay them on this side, spin, stand up, spin, and then counter and clockwise. So the idea is that we're always letting our kids move, crossing midline, and then this midline. And so a beautiful thing about how kids learn is that as long as we keep them moving, they're going to naturally keep moving toward learning. If they sit still, just look at this. Tell me what's moving. Nothing moving. Right? So my son has to earn this. That's another whole story. And I never let him just sit in a chair. We always have balls, and I'm putting all of his stuff over on this side. He's left-handed, so I'm forcing the midline crossover at every possible opportunity. And it's never too late. So 19 years old, get that kiddo to cross that midline, get them moving, get them out in the sunshine, not just sitting down. If they have to have electronics, they can earn them.
Yeah.
Right? But it's get them out. They got to get out. And so anyway, those are just some more pictures. I just trying to give. And this one is something that doesn't cost money. You can do this with kids. You have some kind, and this is part of the astronaut where you are in space stuff. So if you had a ball or any kind of a thing, a cup would work, and you have kids front to back, front to back, front to back, and you're going to go over, and the next one's going to go under. So if I'm standing here, I go over, and then the kid behind me put their back to my back. Well, take it over and then put it there under. So this will be, it'll kind of like through a wave, a sine wave, all the way out and all the way back. The idea is that we're constantly moving through space. It's fun. It's all occupational therapy kind of things, but our kids can still continue to learn from it, no matter their age. First the legs work, and then the hands work, and then the mouth works. So it's a flow chart. If a child is, if we can't do a good 2-footed launch, then there was not going to be a way that he was going to have the oral expressive speech that we were seeking. So that's where we go back, and there's a lot of other exercises. I have pictures in here if you want, and we can talk more about it. But just to let you know that the motor function has to flow. You're going to start with the gross motor, and then into the fine motor, and then into the oral motor. So moving is a really important piece of everything we can do for our kids. This is what our house has always looked like: balls, wiggles, stuff that moves around, balance. The balance wheel there that you see, you can get that from Amazon for about $25, and it's just a round thing with a little chunk on the bottom. So if he's going to do Wi-Fi, sports Wii or TV or anything like that, if he could get on it. That's a home version of the OT show, you know, and it's always about trying to build the core Pilates balance things for our kids. I was told that he could watch TV, but get him a little trampoline and let him jump on the trampoline and watch the screen. So that's something else. You can get a decent little cute trampoline for home from Amazon, $30, $40. So all of these are opportunities for the kids to keep moving while they're still doing preferred activities. So all that is key. Eyes are very important. If we're looking at the senses, how they build learning, so eyes will go fast. This is what vision therapy has looked like for us. Here's some links to more information for families. These are all free resources down here. Vision therapy typically costs, I'm not sure what your insurance covers, but this can be what it looks like. So it's engaging and moving. They have tools that they are able to tell, again, as I said, the eye age of the child, and it makes a big difference. He wore prism glasses for a while. You can see, that doesn't mean they still work when you're moving. If the kid's moving, or the target's moving, or everybody's moving, and the eyes have to team, and they have to jump, they're sitting in the back of the room, they can't see the whiteboard, so they're gonna do any kind of behavior to get out of that. Or if they have to sit up close, but it's still too much of a visual challenge for them. So the eyes are important to all this. So that's some examples of how our writing and printing dysgraphia, we talked about that. You said your son doesn't have dysgraphia. Does your son write well?
He can go both ways because he's actually dyslexic, so he writes beautifully backwards. What I see as,
Awesome. Yeah.
He can.
Yeah.
What
Backwards
day?
design, huh?
Yeah, you know, it's what day.
Yeah. And that's because the signals, the wires are there. It's the signals going through the wires, right? The infrastructure's there. You know, it's just that sometimes the data is a little interrupting. The neural pathways, the neurotransmitters might be burping or something, right? How about Carrie for you? Does your
She writes well. It's
That's
the
awesome.
it's more the finding it in the brain and orally presenting it.
and that's because it's different parts of the brain. So there's a part that takes care of the written language. There's another part that handles the spoken language, right? And then we'll talk about the different language pieces of that communication in just a second. So we'll skip through that. The intention to communicate is really important. So people, you guys don't know who that is, right? So have you ever seen him talk in his movies? I've hardly ever seen him talk, right?
Yeah.
But he carries the movie. So what we want with our kiddos is the intention to communicate. And we've used all of these other tools as the years have gone by. We've done the signing and the pecs and the facial expressions and the onomatopoeia and all that. It's still, this is a way that kids, even if they don't have a full expressive vocabulary, can still get their intention across. So receptive language means the kids they receive your words in their bucket. Auditory processing, there's a video that we looked at, that means, oh, you want me to do something with those words I just put in my bucket. Oh, I know you're waiting for me to say that expressive sentence back out. So the three parts of spoken language is the receptive, what I'm doing with the words you gave me, and now, I gotta give you something that you expect, an expressive language piece. Sometimes with the schools, I tell them, you're gonna have to look for an alternate assessment. Behavior can be an alternate assessment too. You can if you can't get the words out of my kid, then I'm going to look at how he's acting. I'm going to look at other things he's doing to get my answers. Right? And that's not always about beautiful sentences. We'd love that. I mean, you're making progress. But for all of you, for everybody who's watching, whose kiddos still is pre-verbal, they're still doing the prevaricated babbling. Don't give up. Keep at it. It's the intention that you want. When they look at you and you're in the same chunk of universe together. That's what is really important. So the brain does music, the importance of music. Music will do more to the brain and light it up more than anything else. And here's some links that will take you to more information about the importance. If I need my kid to pay attention to me and he's not listening, then I will break into song and I will say something to him like this, and his little brain will go, whoop. He's with it. So use music if you have to. And here's all of this was research. I put this in our ARD when we're working with the school on choir, band, any other of those specials for neurotypical role modeling, peer mentoring. I give them all that research to let them know, so you all can have any of these things and share. So how the ear works, right? It's an important thing. There is a difference between the actual hearing, how you would register, and then the attention that goes with it. if our kiddos have immune system issues, which we did, there's warfare that's going on there with viruses, and to have a healthy ear and for them to actually hear, inflammation occurs, that gums up the works and what's going on with mental activity. So immune system is a real thing. We pay a lot of attention to what he eats, how he sleeps, his biomedical, the nutrition, the advancing of the body. Is the body producing human growth hormone? So if your kiddo is growing taller, and if they're losing their baby teeth, and they're gaining adult teeth, then evidence-based says your child is producing human growth hormone. Not necessarily if your child's getting just white or fatter, that doesn't count. But you want the body to continue to grow, to produce human growth hormone. As an example, there was a time when he was very young that his toes were all piled up on each other like that. And I'd ask everybody, how come his toes look, like deformed or something? And they said, well, one doctor finally told me, our biomedical doctor in Austin, he said, well, the body stopped making human growth hormone, yeah, duh, because he had anaphylactic reaction of fire ants and nearly died, more than one time actually. And so the body has to make the human growth hormone for the body to grow. The brain has to tell the pituitary to make the stuff, so the body can then go, oh, okay, I guess it's time to grow. And so then now the toes look right. So it's a part of physical development. And it's tied into the chemistry of the body. But here's some more information about the sensory averse. If you have the loud noises, why is that? What can you do to help your kid with some interventions? Okay, quantum reflex integration, we do that to help the body methylate to detox, to build up neural pathways. It's becoming much more of a science, the cold lasers. We can talk more about that if you want. Listening therapy, where it comes into the through the ears, and it helps to break down some of the scar tissue that helps the brain process sound in a better way. So there's about 5 modalities of listening therapy, and then quantum reflex integration, cold lasers. That's another. These are all fairly recent, particularly the QRI stuff. But there's a lot of practitioners and a lot of people, and I can definitely tell it's making my kid much more calm within his body. To be just present, which fits then into the whole. It's kind of like if you in the old days we would talk about kinesiology, the electrical systems of the body, kind of into that idea. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about the actual interventions for the reading part. So part of that was just how does this machine work so that kids can actually be ready to absorb information. If it's OG based, and I've got something on Orton Gillingham in the next page, any of your interventions, or you're talking to your school systems, really key is that you need to tell them it needs to be OG or Orton Gillingham, but you can say OG based. Just practice this. Practice some of these things so they just kind of like come right off of your mouth. LEA, don't say school anymore. Say local educational authority, LEA. You can say curricular LRE, curricular least restrictive environment. So just get used to some of this vocabulary that just comes right out when you're talking to the school. So OG. Now we used LLI to no avail. We eventually got out of it. It's a real thing. You can click on these links and it will take you to more information about them. It did not prove to be efficacious for John. So I'm not a big fan. Some people like it. Nighthouse. I got some books here to show you all what some of the trainings I went through. Scientific spelling is an online class I took 2 of them, and then we would sit down and we would do these things at home with John. As time went by, I realized, yikes, we're in a bigger hole than I thought. Something better, deeper, earlier came along, so we stopped that and we went over to Texas Reading Institute. Links for that down here, explicit instruction. So there's a click there for fast forward. There's some people that say it's great. There's some people that say, it's just another sales pitch. It goes back for years and years, 20, 30 years. You might have seen Channel 8 and advertise it for the geriatric generation, but we're using it also for the pediatric, for the kids. We do it, we pay for it. It's something that's app delivered. We do it to augment, and it fits into auditory processing and language processing and interpreting and practice. We have found it to be useful. So I can say we continue to use it. We continue to spend money on that. We'll talk more about Nighthouse, and we'll talk more about the explicit instruction. So explicit instruction means you're just leaving nothing to chance. You're going back so far back in the early steps, and you're doing them such incrementally tiny pieces that if your kid's not showing mastery, we're not moving on. We're going to go back until you get it, right? Or if something needs to be leapfrogged, you have to go back and get it. That happens. So these links will take you to more information. This is what we did at home when it was just my son and I doing NIHOUSE scientific spelling for about 30 minutes a day, give or take. So that's him at the top. So he's sitting there with his binder and he's writing, and I brought some pages. Y'all have seen squirrely writing, so you don't need to see what our squirrely writing looks like, but it was laborious. And then here's me next to him, and I got this manual and that manual, so I'm modeling it, and he's writing it, and we say the letter, we're writing it, we say the words. It's just these building the pathways, and it just drives you crazy because it's so consistent and so, glacial. It moves so slowly, but it's how a kid has to reliably learn these things if they didn't get it the first time. There's not going to be any magical getting it the second time equally without the hard work. So this is not something where I can just turn on an app, walk away, and let him do it. I'm engaged in this, and so if you have someone that helps you instead of you having to do it, which is now what I'm doing also. So I'm farming part of it out, and I'm still taking the responsibility for my kid. I'm also getting a lot of analysis and data from these programs, and I'm copying those, and I'll show you later on. They're going into the yard, and I'm sending them to the teachers. So we have frequent teacher-parent conferences, and I'll show them what we're doing at home. So it's kind of like homeschooling your kid when you really wish you didn't have to. And I really wish I hadn't had to learn all this stuff. It was because there was nobody else. If I didn't learn this, then we were just going to continue to miss the bus. And so for all you parents that have had to dig in and learn this stuff, then, kudos to you, because it's not easy. You could be out on doing a lot of other things, but for your kid, you're making these sacrifices, and there's no other way to do it. Okay. So OG, right, Samuel and Anna, so they are the pioneers and best practices. So if you are looking at outside the school interventions, or even inside the school, and you ask them, is this OG based, and they hedge, you're not getting the best stuff. It needs to be best practices based on these guys. If you're looking at entrepreneurial things from Facebook, and here's a new system of, it's going to be the latest and the greatest, and if it's not OG based, but it happens if you dig into the research and you understand how they're taught, how their steps are, it's probably based on original best practices. It's some of these. There's a lot of people that are trying to take your money. So just be aware. Want you to be aware that it's OG based, and that you understand what the steps are, and that you're not just so desperate like so many of us were for all those years. I would wake up at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and I'd spend money on the internet because I just knew if I bought one more toy, he'd play with toys. If I just bought one more book, we'd be fine with books. It wasn't that easy. I had to implement the hard way. So just make sure it's OG based. Explicit instruction, leaving nothing to chance. So these two organizations, we did this one in Houston and this one in the Woodlands where we live. They say their version of tutor hours, 60 to 80. They're in that red box. We're at 100, approaching 110, and we're still not done. So some of us just have bigger holes than others. Some of the kids are just, your kiddo's in a different place than mine is, and so everybody's in a different place. But at least it's a game plan. And so the reason we're going through this, it was 101 when I first made the slide, but we're up higher now, of their hours, but we're still doing our hours. And I'm trying, I know this is a lot of information, and I apologize for that. It's that maybe if some of this sticks for you and you have a roadmap and you say, I don't have to go and make up my own list, you kind of help prioritize it, you help me give me the links, this is where I can go, I can kind of pick and choose my palette of stuff. So most of my intention is just to show you the wide trail of breadcrumbs and see what is useful to you, okay? Because every kid's different. So here's Mr. Phillip, remember? You've seen him. Yes. Here's our favorite guy from Family Literacy Network. Philip was the cause of it all. He had dyslexia as a child. His dad abandoned his medical profession and jumped into this, and here's Philip now. He's the best on redirects for my son John. John would pull the most amount of tricks. So embarrassing. I was just so ashamed sitting there waiting in the room, and he'd be on the floor just trying to get away with anything. And Philip was always superb in using humor and getting him back on track. He's just the best. So here's some of John's writing. So you can see that heading downhill. We have a list that we work on every day. So I'm trying to get him to write, or I have to do, but he's supposed to be doing it. So you can see that downhill stuff. That just fits into the visual integration. It's not complete, not mature, and fits into the dysgraphia piece that he's wrestling with. So anyway, and then he made a bad choice that day, so that was me, my commentary there about So we work on his list, and if he doesn't do well, then you know what? He doesn't earn his, you know what, electronics. How sad, too bad. If he really botches it and he won't do his list, then he's going to do my list. And he only did that once because I held the boundary for the rest of the night. So it was no fun doing mom's list, laundry, dishes, clean off the table, all that kind of stuff, and go to bed. That was no fun at all. So we're always talking about behavior here too, motivation to the child. What are they willing to do, and for why? Facing Codependency, the best book for healing. There's another one, The Childhood Roots to Adult Happiness. So if you only read 2 books, read Facing Codependency and The Childhood Roots to Adult Happiness. They are simple to read, they're awesome, I read them every year. So the reason we have the mountains here is it comes from Dr. Bergman's example. So here's the little you, right? And if you're looking at that mountain of, oh my God, my kid can't read, and this is never gonna work because he's already 13, 14 years old and we're just jibber-jabbering, right? But the point of it is that how do you climb a mountain? You do the switchbacks. And so maybe you go around it, and maybe you have things like this. You take one step at a time. And the idea is that eventually you're going to get up to the goal, which is learning how to read, but it's going to take explicit instruction, piece by piece by piece, phonetic grapheme, word decode, word build, word breakdown, all that stuff, and eventually they're going to be able to be operating at that 6th grade level, and that's what the world operates, 6th grade reading level. So if our kids can navigate that and do checkbook math, 5th, 6th grade math and reading, then they'll be okay when we're not here anymore. They'll be okay. So anyway, that's the goal, and that's the method, and that's the hope too. So never feel like that it won't work out. Well, you want to say something?
No, I think
I'm losing it. So, oh, thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, good. I made this model just to really quickly give you an idea of the complexity of, but also what the pieces of learning are. So the child needs to be able to attend physically. It's a healthy body, movement-based learning, and then we want self-directed learning for them, right? So when they show up, you're not going to make anybody do something they don't want to do. So we hope that they take joy in their learning and want to eventually pick up a book. Wouldn't that be awesome for them to pick up a book and choose to read for fun? Not because it's their assignment, it's on their list and I'm making them do it. So I keep a box of books in the car. I keep books everywhere we go with the hope that, okay, no electronics. Oh, there's a window you can look out when we're driving, and there's a box of books. Make a clever choice, dude. You know, that's his choice in the car. There's no electronics unless he's helping me navigate GPS, in which case he's reading, all right? Or we'll play a game, billboard. You read one, and then I'll read one, and then you read one, and we're trying to pick words as we go. So anything to interact, too, because we're always hitting that, over here, social-emotional learning, positive behavioral redirects, self-regulation, metacognition, so that's the thing with the frog. Meta, me, thinking, meta means me, cognition, I'm thinking, so I'm thinking about my thinking. So that's the thing with the frog there, is that we would love our kids to get to a point where they're aware of what they do and why. Self-control. And then intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic, I'm doing it because I feel good about myself, I feel proud about myself. Extrinsic is you're bribing me. You're bribing me or you're forcing me. And you know what's going to happen as soon as we run out of cookies or Skittles, or I turn my back, or walk away, and you keep working on this stuff for 10 minutes and I'll be right back, right? So we want them to do it because they feel proud of themselves, good about themselves, intrinsically. What's character? What do you do when no one is looking? We want our kids to have grown-up tools. All right. So reading for comprehension's everywhere. I make him check in. He helps me with the GPS. He got a bank account one day. He was sitting back like this. Brother's getting his bank account, and I'm looking over at John thinking, maybe. You know, I said, hey, John, would you like to have a bank account? And all of a sudden, his little face pops up, and he leans forward. He's into it. Yes, of course I want my own bank account. So we put our kids into the world. I don't fill out his name on forms. There, he's signing up for something at Taekwondo. His name is going to look the sloppiest, and I let my mom shame just accept that, you know. But he did it himself. So that's the only way they're going to learn, is they have to practice, practice, practice. That's how they get the neural pathway pruned down, is practice. Even if he does something out in public and it's all wrong and it's horrifying to me, and I'm standing there being shamed, and I just wait. We play this game, he knows. I wait. So he's out there smirking, he thinks he pulled one over on me. He knows he's going to have to double back, stand here, he's going to have to do it right, and we're going to say, this is how you do it right. So he's always pushing the boundaries, and our kids will do that, but we want them to push boundaries, we want them to try to manipulate us, we want them to have that cognitive function. It just doesn't mean they get away with it. So now we're back to boundaries, strong-willed child, love and logic, consistency, right? Dang it. Hand consistency. Restaurant checkouts, where actually he's working on the tip there, trying to figure out the math, sign it. So just back off. I gotta back off every single time for everything and make him learn how to do it himself. Okay, so let's talk a little bit now about, you've seen this, the explicit instruction. This might seem too early for your child. It might be too, I mean, your two children may be past it, but it's still the basics, meeting them where they are. So here's what the notebook looked like for the graphemes that had two phonemes. So I already used M and S, but they still, so N. E is just one sound, right? I is one sound. T, E, two phonemes. V. And so he would say it and trace it, and if it was wrong, we'd say it and trace it over again, hand over hand if we had to. So we are going back way to the beginning to get phonetic awareness at that fundamental level, and then we can progress through the program. But that's what it looked like in the original, and we spent a lot of time doing that. And I was sitting there thinking, why do we have to do this? Well, we had to because he didn't have those basics. So you've seen some of our friends here at Family Literacy Network. Now let me see if I do one more. There we go. Okay. So this is what it looks like in practice. And I'm sharing with you some pictures from our life. It's not always glamorous and it's not always beautiful, but it's there. So here's some of the tools. We had little boxes and drawers, and they would just try this, do this, and then we would turn that in and we would get the next tool. I don't know if you're seeing those kinds of a variety of tools and you're going through it all. Ask them for that. Say, listen, I hear you got these little boxes and concentration, R-A-T, and then you mix them up, and then he's got to do R-A-T, say the word, rat, and then blend it that way. And so, yes, it sounds very mechanical at the beginning, but as fluency comes and rapidity comes, then now he can go faster, but he has to do it right at the beginning to build that neural pathway, the foundation. So those are some of the tools that we took with us. There's Philip again, and some of the other practitioners up there that would help us. So we would do our 2 hours on a Saturday too. We would do it in the car. So here I've got some pages we'll pass around in a minute. So we would do some of the word building, word decoding, phonetics, separating the syllables. And he's also wearing the headphones, so we're doing the auditory processing at the same time. You could do the listening therapy, auditory processing supports. You just can't have music. You can read or you can talk because it's working with the ears, but you can't compete with the sound brainwaves. So it's okay that we're doing this in the car while we're driving somewhere. So that's a triple dip there. But you know how that goes with your life. There's not enough minutes in the day to do everything, so you see what you can stack up on top of each other. So, and then here's some of our practitioners up at the Woodlands, Texas Reading Institute, the Woodlands. So these are fabulous. They're all fabulous educators who care about the kids. And John gives them a run for their money. I have to admit, they are so patient. All three of your kids don't have behaviors. That's great. My kid does and presses it. And so sometimes he does best with me not there. They're happy to have you in the room so you can learn. And I've tried to absorb everything so I understand everything. But actually, he does way better when I'm gone. And even when he promises that he's going to be good and I'll leave if he does badly, makes poor choices, I'm not in there hardly at all, and then I'm gone. So anyway, it's a lot of push-pull, right, with our kids and what they're trying to get away with, what they're trying to distract us from, because they're using their anything that they can. They're using their wiles, their executive functioning to get out of something that they don't want to do. But that's okay. I'm glad they're trying, right? Way better than just being sitting there like an automaton. So that's kind of what it looks like. I post all the time, so in my Facebook feed you can friend me or lurk if you want, and I post examples. I post the hashtags of why. So the big fancy words that you might want to use in your ARD. Probably not at a cocktail party because nobody will want to talk to you. If you start yakking on about phonetic awareness, executive functioning, working memory, all that stuff. But it is good to whip out at the ARD and let them know that they need to have more respect for you and what you're doing with your kids, and that you're paying attention to those things. So how does it work out in public too, right? So anything that's your body's in space. So all that gymnastics, the auditory processing, the movement-based that we do at martial arts helps the reading. It integrates, helps all of that. We do a lot of music. We did choir at any kind of at school, the choir program, the performance, the band, participating, showing up, watching the other peers, sitting down, listening, following directions. All of that continues to move your kid toward learning. Percussion, let them drum, a nonprofit that's awesome. And he also does lessons privately in the home. So we do this on a Sunday, and he works on the homework, and then we do some John's got a drum set that I bought secondhand. Look on all the secondhand places, you get some great used drums. And then he's learning how the whole rock and roll thing, rock and drum. We are now working with our church on the visual camera work, the video production stuff. John's really digging music. So you never know what your kid's going to love, what's going to cause them to be excited about learning. So whatever it is, use it shamelessly, right? And for John, it happens to be music, which then tends to reading. Also, if you're ever watching anything on a video, turn the captions on, because that forces the casual reading too. Anytime they can see words, hear words, and understand what's going on, it just continues to help the integration. So always turn your captions on in any movie that you can. So resilience and research and Harvard Business Review, there's some links more just in case you want to have that to talk to people you're trying to convince. Power of conversation, joint attention, why it's important. So there's a lot of research. Multiple intelligences. Please know that your child can have one or more of these intelligences. They're not limited to 1 or 5 or 2. As an example, if they are a naturalistic learner, then they will do well with houseplants. If you do poorly with houseplants, then maybe you don't have naturalistic multiple intelligences. But great book, fabulous. Also, we're talking about what do they think that we think about their self-esteem and how they feel about themselves, how they feel about compared to their peers, what goes on in the classroom, are they shamed if they sit too far back, too far forward, how's that interaction toward how they feel about themselves. It's a really important thing. The older they get, the less important the parents are and the more important the peers are, and how they fit into the social fabric. And we may think our kids don't care, but I swear to you, the last 2 mornings, my kid has been negotiating like crazy for some. It can't be this one. A friend gave us this one. It wasn't good enough. It had to be this little gym bag, little drawstring bag that all the other kids are using to put their clothes in to get down the hallway to go to PE. So now he's all like branding on stuff, whereas before he didn't care. He'd wear whatever I got him. So kids they're very peer aware and socially aware, but that's good. We want that. Okay, we talked about this already. It's good. They just hold your boundaries. Don't cave, and you start caving, it's just going to be worse and worse. But be happy they're doing it. Okay. So now the Dyslexia Handbook 2018. Here's I went to a night house training. Here's I'll pass this around. This is the copy of it, and then here's the training that went with it. And just in a close version, just a one-sentence book report, is that if you are in the state of Texas, kindergarten and half of first grade, you have the right to require them to test your child for dyslexia. Now, for my kid, we were playing poker on whether or not we really wanted to have him test again poorly because he's not motivated and then get a really low score. So we kicked that can down the road, but we talked about it with the LEA and in the ARD and with the DIAG. So our clever strategy of waiting as long as possible to get him to be as motivated as possible, the school understands, and so there's no secrets, and that's great. Your kids may test well, and if they do, then you can get them tested to find out if they really have it or not. And here's some links to more information from the website on just vocabulary and what's going on. So that's just a really quick version. We could actually take 2 hours going through that. Do you guys have some questions here? I know I'm going so very fast. Okay. And some more links, and there's law. So as you're taking all that you're doing here with your kids and their improved phonetic awareness, you have a chance to take that to the ARD. So the whole rights law thing was a great conference and website. So there are laws. I use the law when I talk to the school, but it's just a little bit of mention, and then we're back to negotiating through quandaries with the LEA. I love, and I'll come back and do a 2-hour workshop on building a positive ARD experience, where you try to work with the school. You know where you're flexible with and what you're not flexible with, and you just cannot go in there and be rigid, because if everybody's rigid and they're all fighting it, then you're going to head to court and you're not going to win, and your kid's time is going to go by. So I like to. There's things I tell parents: do these 5 things and stop doing these 5 things, and it's going to help you with the LEA. So more information. Now, I just learned something about the STAR Alt. We are going to no longer, and I told them this at school, we are no longer going to show up for the STAR Alt, because I've heard that it's against you. It puts a blot on your diploma if you're trying to go on. Is that not true?
My son was sick many a day of STAR testing.
Yeah, you're just not showing up.
Yeah, he graduated.
Mm-hmm.
He's fine.
So by taking the STAR alt, apparently, and I've had no one tell me that it's not true, so until then, I told the school, well, we're not going to do it, because if you take the STAR alt, there's going to be some place on that diploma that tells the junior college, tells Lone Star, or tells some college that this kid wasn't up to par, wasn't up to snuff. So,
didn't pass
Yeah.
the state standardized exam. That's
They are graded, yes.
so that means that he's going to have constraints on trying to get into like maybe a 2-year or a certificate program or something like that. So I'm just saying that's our new stance with the school.
I haven't heard that.
I heard it once, and it was just enough scary for me to ask the school, and they'll go, I don't know.
Yeah,
I haven't
knows.
heard that.
Okay.
I haven't heard that.
So until I know
It was
It's a
a-
great unknown right now.
It
so
was
we don't know.
always
Yeah.
it was always a reading criteria that your child had to meet X grade level.
Okay.
Never
So-
heard. I've not heard
Just
STAR.
FYI, do
Yeah.
your own decision making. All right.
Mhm.
So here's some links to more about LLI. I've already admitted that it wasn't making any progress with my kid. We forced them to do something different, and they were okay with that, so that's great. But that's what LLI is. So if they if the school system starts talking about the fabulous things about LLI, do your own research. Okay, now this is the class I attended at the recent Winter Garcia HISD Early Childhood Conference. She was ahead of me, but I was speaking after her. So I saved her stuff. And she did some really great concrete examples for preschool teachers. So if your kiddo is preschool, they haven't gotten into the school system yet, and they're attending a pre-K or even kinder, there's things that should be done. Her whole point was, here's a few of her slides, and she'd be glad to talk further with you. Her whole point was that for those little kids, it's not so much that they need to hurry up and memorize sight words. They need to instead understand the social infrastructure of syllables and following along. Someone else gave me this example. One of our reading teachers said her kid has a teacher, and the teacher says, constant, 2 syllables. What happens if I take the con away? Constant. Take con away, what do we have? Stand. So it's these concrete things that the little kids can get accustomed to, and hearing reading, and hearing the story, and sitting still, and joint attention, so that later on, then they'll get into the nitty-gritty of the words, and the consonants, and the phonetic awareness. So I really enjoyed her class. The slides didn't tell the whole story. You had to be there, so that's why we have the contact information. She can provide more information if you want, or I can too. Okay. So some other interventions, we have not done these yet. I'm not. I've heard some good things about Linda Mood. For sure, we'll do CogMed. We just haven't gotten to it yet. The other reading ones, as long as they're OG based and they're within your price range and they can be delivered and you see progress, then that would be probably appropriate. You want to be able to see progress. If you stop seeing progress with any of your interventions, what are we supposed to do? Stop. Yeah. Spend your money and time on something else, right? If you're not seeing progress, move on. So, but there's links. You can click on those and that will take you to more information. Okay. So some other preschool teachers that I met at PTAC, they shared, so here's her name, Jean Ann Guerrero, and her team made this YouTube channel. So I give this to you. It's their version of a bunch of little pre-reading videos and how-tos for kids. So if you wanted to do this at home with your preschool kids, or if first, second grade, maybe the ones that aren't up at full word comprehension yet. So another resource. It's up to you if it's useful to you, but I'm just trying to, everything I find, I'm trying to get in here so that we have you have all your choices. Okay. Someone else told me, so when you're talking to your kid, find out, so we talked about Erlen's filters, you know, that thing about maybe the blue, the pink, the red, the eye waves. Some people say that's irrelevant, but I got them. I've not found them to be, I've tried them. I bought a pack of 25 from Amazon, $25 or something, but you can borrow mine if you want to try it. And another person said, okay, talk to your kid about colors. So what color is subtraction, John? Or what color would language arts be? So this is kind of like way out there, but somebody said that this was working, so I share that with you in case you want to try that. Ask him. What color is science? You know, who knows? See if he says anything. You don't know about the brain. Okay, so we're not going to go into a lot of methylation, but the immune system, helping that body get through the cognitive goo to be able to think and focus on what you're talking about. a little bit here. I'm gonna just skim through them, because how much time do we have? Like, hardly any?
About 10 minutes.
Okay, we're just gonna skip through this. If you all can have the links, it's great information. That's another whole 2 hours about how the body and the brain has that. So this is how it fits into our world, and what we're doing. And it's working, and I haven't dropped any of these things. So that thing about, you can drop it if it's not working, but if it's working, hang in there. Okay. So I wanted to pass this stuff around. So with the Nye House, scientific spelling was worth my time and was worth my $200. It was 2 online classes. I showed you what it looked like. We did that at home. I would go back to it. When I found out there was something that was deeper, earlier, more comprehensive with the disc file, we went to that. You'll see my writing. You'll see some of his writing. It's worth it. Would it be what you do for your 19-year-old son? It's hard to say. If you did it because you were curious, or you go to one of their 2-hour free sessions at Nye House and just kind of get up to snuff on what a parent would do. I'm glad I did it, and I don't regret it. I used it. I still use it with him. And when we're talking about words, most reliable sound, or unfair words, or repetition, it's like you don't want to become your own teacher, but you kind of are. And it's my responsibility for my kids' learning. The school, I tell them, you're the best intervention I could find for these 7 hours per day, or else you'd be in a different school, but you're the best one, in public, for the reasons. So I'm a fan of public school. I'm a fan of making them do the right thing. They may say Nye House. Right now, Conroe ISD is looking at another one. I think it's a rebranded version of Nye House stuff, and I don't want to say watered down. I didn't say that, Mary. I said rebranded. I don't know. I haven't been to the class on it yet. Whatever works for your kid, and they can help retell the story. That's the 4th characteristic of dyslexia. If your child can read something and tell you the story, you're doing the right thing. It's working. Whatever it is. Okay. So so that's Nye House, and it's 30 minutes a day at home, on the couch, at the table, in the car. We're gonna do it, and he's gonna kick up a fuss, and we're still gonna do it. How sad, too bad. We're not doing electronics until we get this done. It's on your list. Not sorry I'm doing it. Not at all sorry. So, and then now we're gonna switch to, I just took a break from mindful. We're coming back to mindful in just a second. Let me do this. Whoops, wrong way. Sorry. So I'm just passing this around to everybody here. Sorry you guys don't get to see it, but you can ping me and I'll send you pictures. It's on my Facebook too. So this is what it looked like when we were breaking words into syllables. Whole set of rules on that. Pages and pages of that stuff. Here's some of the things we would work on. Grid. What are your sounds for things? We would work on when the words in the phonetics were simpler, and then we would go, and then ear, and then full, ear, full, fearful. And then we would work on the word, and then he would write it. And if he clutched, then we would just write it again. So it was basic, and it was the same way every time. And Philip and his dad explained it to me. It had to be this way, and I had to follow the rules. And anybody that franchises the stuff has to follow the rules because it's based on the research from NIH from long ago. And I'm just not fighting it. I'm saying yes, sir. Okay, we'll do it that way. Alternate reading texts. We would use their books, and then we would move up to something more complex. They're choosing sentences based on words with a specific phonetic composition. So they're looking for reliable sounds, and then pretty soon they'll sprinkle in tricky words, unfair words, but they're trying to do it so the kid has a sense of accomplishment, can read. So you pick up an arbitrary book, a random book, you might have all kinds of combinations of words because who wrote that book wasn't thinking about the child with phonetic awareness and competency and building neural pathways. It was just what sounds good in a sentence. So that's why they would have these specific texts that we would work on for the homework. We had to do these. So here's some others. Pass that around. And then here's some of we would work on these exercises. And this would be like maybe 20 minutes. They would write the word picture, they would write the word sound. They would have to say, okay, in this sound, how many words how would you write this sound? They would do it the other way around. Here's a sound, how would you write it? What are the words? And it just was a lot of consistency.
So is this one from family?
That's from Dr. Bergman. Yeah. Just another text, past the pink book.
Okay.
Yeah. And then this is the handbook, and they call this grid. And so they're keeping track of all the sounds that he's mastered. We have a section on spelling tests, so just like out of school, spelling tests, and then reading. Every day we had to read, and then I'd have to stop and ask questions. So they have a certain way that they expect you to do it. Okay, so this is just our handbook, and I'll pass that around. It's been worth it. It's been worth the time, it's been worth the money. The look on my kid's face when we go to Sunday school and he finds the section in the Bible, little tiny font, and he reads it in front of the class. He's the youngest kid in that class, but he's hanging, and he's so proud of himself to be able to read just wherever we go. I make him do all the reading now. I just act dumb. Yes, I'm sorry, I'm busy driving. You're gonna have to read it to me. And so to see him proud of what he's doing is like the best. So it's been absolutely worth the investment. So let's talk about that sense of that child's well-being. We've skimmed through the tools. We can talk more about it anytime you want. So for our kids, so here's an adult. We're all filled with our head of supper and yesterday's regrets and taxes to come and who said what to us at work, right? But here's a kid, right? Da 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 da. Just kind of like nothing. They're mindful. They are truly much more in the moment than we are. So if we're gonna try to be mindful with our kiddos, to stay here, not to think about yesterday, not to think about tomorrow, not to be worried about what's going to happen to you when I'm gone, but to take joy in their learning today and to reinforce that and have the in the flow of the day with our kiddos. To help them to process their thoughts, their feelings, sensory integration, the bodily sensations, the surrounding environment, for them to be at peace in their skin. Okay, so we got a plan A, plan B, and plan C. Plan A, I want friends. You gotta have, if you wanna have friends, you gotta be a friend, John. Get your phone out, we're gonna text somebody to see if you wanna play. They say no, all right, so what's plan C? What's plan B? And we'll have some other strategies. So it's always about helping them step into their own maturity, take responsibility for their own decisions. And that's I know that's big ideas for parenting, but it helps them with their just understanding, accepting where they are in the world, and that we don't judge them, that we try to be in the present moment with them. So that's psychology. It's psychology with our kids, for them to be happy with themselves and love themselves and take joy in what they're willing to do. Okay, just a little bit about the art. I know we got about 4 minutes. So we do the bus, and that's another whole story with the art. I said I would share with anybody the parent presentation. I share so this is the cover of our art, and I sit down and they're going to have this to go over their predetermination for the 5 days. But when we're done talking, if they want to present first, they have that right. Before I'm signing anything, we're going to go through my version of the parent presentation of the new stuff, not last year's. That's in the back. So there are documents like that. They printed it out this year, and that thing's that thick. But that's okay. I want them to know I'm paying attention to things. So how does this look? How does this integrate? We're the band at the playoff game. We're doing the taekwondo. It fits into their learning. We want our kids to have those kind of smiles. They're a happy kid when they go to school. It's easy to get him up and out to go to school. He wants to go to school. Right. Do your kids want?
Yeah.
Want?
It depends.
Want?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. You want that because it makes your life. Makes your life so much easier.
Different issues, but
right.
yes.
Yes. Okay. So I put these are some pages I put in my parent presentation to the school. I put a little bit of the law down there. It doesn't show up in the purple, but I put purple font and I put the law in there. Again, I'm not trying to beat them over the head with it. I'm just trying to say it's here. We're negotiating around that, but it's still here, and it's not de minimis. It's not the least, and it's not going to be lack of curricular least restrictive, because we're going to have a problem with a school something coming up pretty soon. So I'm watching my silver bullets, and I'm letting them know these are my silver bullets. I'm not flexible in these things. I'll work with you on this other stuff, but not curricular LRE. Sorry, not going to do that. Not selling it down the river again. I did that too many years. Okay, so and then. This is what we build this into the school. So when we get the ARD back, then the pages of the IEP, and this one here, they made their edits. I brought in the stuff that we're doing. I don't like what you're telling me. This is what I want to see on it. So they revised it. You wordsmith through the ARD. So when you're going through that, if they're making their corrections, you want to get a hard copy at the end to make sure that the corrections actually did get in there. And when you're going through the ARD, don't sit there and pout and be angry. This is your chance to wordsmith out and in really key phrases. And if something's in there that you don't like, and I saw that, it was in there 3 different times, and I bring it up, and they say, oh, we don't think that. I said, well, it's in the ARD 3 times. Let's change that, and let's put a paragraph in there. We all as the LEA agree that John's learning is not at that low number where he tested poorly in kindergarten. That's not who that learning piece is. Okay, so negotiate through that every time you go through the ARD. And if you have to take a break, they take a break. Cause it to stop. Don't sign it until you're absolutely happy with it. So then they had some things. I write letters. I get our therapists to write letters, and I put them in like letters of recommendation of where he is with the different therapies. This is what the fast forward printouts look like. We go over that with him. Here is how we're using some of the reading. Big red flag. This is on their language arts. Yeah, language arts. And they said they were going to work on filling out job applications. And I hit the roof. I said, no, we're going to work on essays because he's going to go to junior college and he's going to need to be able to write essays. So we're going to have to recraft this whole thing. And they did fine. And I'm telling them, okay, this is all the things that I'm doing. Put my money where my mouth is. So we're not going to have in there that the IEP goal is to fill out his name and address on job applications in 7th grade. I hated that. Okay, but fine, we're good now. And I'm telling them, we're working on dysgraphia too, all right? They know that. So here's our beautiful dysgraphia, but we're at restaurants, and if he wants to earn the phone, he's going to have to get his homework done, and we do it no matter where we go. So more stuff, and then here's the elephant math. So if your kiddo is struggling with dyscalculia, the best thing I've found for the, we used to do touch math, but it just stays concrete, and then that's another thing. I abandoned touch math because I realized the kid can't read, so we went to reading instead. So how can I backfill math when he's way below grade level? Elephant math is way up now to 9 point something age, 9.7. So he's making progress. It's app delivered. It's $35 a month. It starts off low. Take out some of the accents if you don't like them, and it's we use the English-based ones now. So there's some UK and Aussie dialects, but that's all right. His ear's picking that up. And then they do beautiful analysis. So I take the analysis back to the yard too, and I show them in all these areas of math. This is why we're not giving up on him on math. And this is why we're, okay, science labs, good. Resource, great. Have neurotypical peer modeling, great. He did that back in 5th and 6th. We want to have that in 7th and 8th. So this is just showing them this is why I'm demanding that John has neurotypical in curricular stuff so he can see what it looks like. Because if he just sees monkey, that's all he's going to do. Sorry, that's all he's going to do. Okay, so this is what I send in the yard. And you can do that too. You can tell them, hey, universal design, that's the best practices thing, so that no matter who it is, what type of learning strength they have. I know you're out of time, right? We've got to stop.
That's okay.
I just want to get to the final page, and then I'll zip it, which is consequences for our kids. All right? So, if we do this right, and we help the school do it right, our kids can have the positive consequences, not the negative. We always say negative, bad consequences are going to get you. But they can have the positive consequences of confidence, pride, joy, risk-taking. We talked a lot about risk-taking, and I didn't mention it during our actual Facebook time. You can check out my Facebook if you want. I post all the time about the risks that we take, and letting him have enough rope, not to broken bones and blood, but enough to make mom nervous. But it always has paid out. We talk about stranger danger, and then he gets on his bike, doesn't put his helmet on, and off he goes. And I stand there, and I go check on him. 30 minutes later, he's still gone. And I let him, and he comes back, and I go, hey, I missed you. Great to have you back. But he takes joy in that. So we had to negotiate the yard for the regular bus, and they said, special ed bus. I said, no way, we're taking those risks. We've been backward chaining for the gen ed bus since all through elementary. They said, ooh, he's going to get bullied. I said, we'll take our chances. Now that bus is the #1 motivator for him in the morning. He gets off way over there, coming home at the end of the day. He walks here, and coming all the way around the house to get, and he's very proud of that. So any way that you can let your kid take those risks, and you might have to make the art let you do it, but that's okay. It's really paying out. He's independent with the lock and the key. He's a boomerang. We got lost once. He ran away, kind of wandered off. But since then, we've been working on it, and now he has access in and out. And we have to have that for our kids, so that they don't have to be locked down all the time. What kind of a child? What kind of life is that? But it takes time, and it takes backward chaining. And there's ways we can do that. Okay, so don't give up on your kids. Back to their positive goals. They can have a sense of belonging. They can feel respected and have self-respect. They can feel self-control. They can feel resilience. They can be poised. When something happens at school and they don't just crush, they can stand up and feel poised about it, right? Through all those hard years of teen. They can build their own self-esteem, not what the world tells them, but how they feel about themselves. And they can handle the natural consequences and the unintended consequences of life. And that's the greatest gift we can give our kids, is for them to figure out, how do I do that? I failed. Okay. I don't always succeed, so how am I going to get back up and dust myself off and often start all over again, to build resilience for our kids? And they can have that because they build it in themselves. And we, as the caring adult that helps them with resilience, we grow that. Kids are not born with resilience. It's a muscle. They grow it through the experiences in life. And that's a very key thing that you all do, is the parents and then the other people that, paraprofessionals that help raise kids. That's the whole science of resilience, and there's research on it too. That was very fast. I apologize.
No, we're lots of great information. The research, the food for thought, the experiences, the examples, just excellent. So thank you so much,
Of
Gayle.
course.
And I'll let our listeners know before we sign off. I will get a copy of the PowerPoint as well if they'd like
Yeah.
to see a copy of that.
Absolutely.
And they just contact the ARC of Fort Bend County, and we'd be happy to share that with you as well. But thank you again, Gayle.
You feel free to share the website. Any
Yes,
links,
and
as you wish.
getting sorted as well. Please visit Gayle Facebook page. It's
Yeah, Gayle, yes, YESS Fisher. And if you want, we can put just a picture of that card if you wish, or put a
yes.
link in, however you want to do that. And I'll be glad to answer
Here.
further questions. I know
So,
we went.
oops. This is just the contact information for Gayle, and also the phone number, email address, and website link. And if you have any other questions, please contact Gayle. She has a lot of great resources, and we're so happy that you shared that with us today. Thank you, Gayle.
Oh, I'm glad. I apologize for talking too fast.
No.